Hello, my name is Katie Kelly. I'm a disability and inclusion advocate, something I'm very passionate about. Two-time Paralympian and won Australia's first gold medal in the sport of para-triathlon at Rio. And I also set up a foundation called Sport Access Foundation, and we help young Australians with disability access sport. It was really wonderful watching the Paris Paralympics, and I had the great opportunity to be part of the ABC Sports daily updates for that with Ned Hall. And I think what came out of Paris again is people with disability, you go into that space and disability doesn't matter, and you don't even have to think about it. You're not thinking unconsciously or subconsciously, how am I going to get to that cafe? Is it accessible? Will I have to have another conversation with someone about my prosthetic leg or my guide dog? Those sorts of things. And so it's almost like this mental fatigue is not there. So with the Paris Paralympics, I really enjoyed the way the athletes were advocating, talking about disability, but also reminding everyone we need to create an environment, community, workplaces like what the Paralympic experience is for people with disability. If we're going to progress the access and inclusion of people with disability, it has to start with that conversation around our mindsets, our preconceived ideas, our belief systems, our unconscious bias that we have of people with disability. And there's great work that's happening in terms of access and in terms of access to a building or to technology, but it's still the nuances and unconscious bias, I think, of people's attitudes that need to be challenged and that we need to continue to have conversations of. And so it's limiting attitude that people with disability experience regularly. And it's a comment like, good on you, you are inspiring, from someone in a taxi taking you to work, and you say, well, why am I inspiring? I'm going to work. And you're inspiring too, you're going to work. And they look at you a bit perplexed. And it's that sort of, disabling attitude that's not helpful. Whilst they're trying to create a connection, it's actually creating a disconnect. It's comments like, oh, this must be really hard for you. And it's not hard for me. It's only hard when system attitude, the community around me, create barriers that do not allow me to participate in the same level. That's when it's hard. When I think about what a person's life with a disability might look like if attitudes were more inclusive, I can't help but go back to that example of, being in the Paralympic Village. And I called it in a LinkedIn post the inclusion bubble, because I meant that you're in this amazing space where you're not having to think about your disability to access a cafe or to get that taxi and so on. And it's the everyday services and products that we use where there's still barriers for us to access in the same way of a person without a disability. So if you think of streaming services, if you're using like the TV apps, a lot of them don't have captions. You need to go to YouTube or back to the free-to-air TV version to get it. And here we are in this modern day of tech, and I just think it's not acceptable. It should be embedded in our processes. So we use Zoom and Teams, and we know you can get transcription, you can turn your captions on, people can make adjustments to their lives, and I'm seeing it in the workplace. That is embedded. It's a service that's fully accessible. So I think about, if you think about that and applying that to everything else that we use and embedding in the way we work, that there are no barriers. So another example is a person who is deaf. I only found this out, that they may have a budget with the NDIS. They have to budget when they use an Auslan interpreter. I just don't know how that's acceptable, that a person who needs to communicate with mainstream community and world, i.e. spoken English, they've got a budget of, $1,000, and they've got to budget that out to when they can engage with you and I, when they can afford it. And I think about during COVID, they had Auslan interpreters because it was an emergency, it was a crisis, and then it stopped. So I don't know how that's acceptable, and just think there's still so much more to do to ensure that people aren't left behind, and we do everything possible to bring everybody along. People with disability in years gone by weren't seen, weren't in the community, because access and education wasn't part of the conversation we're having now. And there are still, I think, people in our community that need to be educated and in some ways challenged that is not good enough. Everybody has a place in our world today and has a right to be connected and to be mobilising around our communities. For me, a better Australia is where we make decisions based on a person's human right to be part of our everyday, like a person without a disability. The costs and adjustments required is not something that we have to factor in. And I don't know why that would be an idealistic kind of view. For me, it's a basic human right that all of us have the right investment and equitable and equal opportunity to engage as someone who doesn't have those additional impairments or disability.